On Friday, January 12th, Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, made a cryptic tweet where he posted this chess position. And what does it mean? Well, people have liked to use chess as an analogy, as a metaphor for many things. Who hasn't seen a boxing match where it starts off slowly and the commentators go, yes, it's like a chess match, they are feeling each other out. Or you've seen a football match where it might be even, it's 0-0, and it's a grandmaster draw. Or it's a stalemate. It's a draw, it's a stalemate. So chess has been used in many areas of life to describe many things as a metaphor. Many chess players have said chess is like life, it's a metaphor for life. So what did Julian mean? And who is Julian Assange? Well, for those who don't know, Julian Assange was the founder of WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is a web page where many things were exposed that were not available to the general public, things like war crimes and various scandals concerning banks, etc. So naturally, there came a point where Julian Assange was a bit wanted by authorities, especially US authorities. But Assange was a free man until some incidents in Sweden where he was accused of rape. And he became a wanted man in Sweden. Eventually, things transpired so that he was in the UK, in London, and he sought an asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. He was granted citizenship by Ecuador, but he was threatened with arrest if he were to leave the embassy. So Assange has essentially stayed in the Ecuadorian embassy in London for 5 years. Now he can't leave because he will be arrested by the UK authorities and extradited to Sweden, where he will have to face the allegations. And Sweden has a treaty with the US, so the fear is that he would be then extradited to the US. Although things are vague about what would happen. In any case, people are very curious about what this tweet means. And I think we shall have a look at the chess game and then we will have some further speculations after it. The game itself is actually quite a famous game, played by the Cuban Jose Raul Capablanca with white, who later became world champion, and the American Frank James Marshall, who was the US champion for a very long time and a very strong player. So perhaps the nationality of the players has something to do with the conspiracy. You know, Black is attacking is the US, and Capablanca is from Cuba, a state that has been, a sanctuary against the US for a long time. So let's see. Capablanca had white, and he opened with e4. And we saw the Ruy Lopez, the Spanish, one of the most popular openings and historic openings in chess. Bishop comes to a4. Everything is normal here. This has been played thousands and upon thousands of times. Bishop e7, rook e1, Black plays b5, Bishop e3, and castles. And now this move c3 allows Black to play what is today called the Marshall attack, and it is indeed named after this gentleman, Frank James Marshall. And here he played d5, and this is the Marshall attack, a very famous opening now that has gone through many periods. For a time it was considered a great attacking weapon, but unfortunately nowadays it's more of a drawing weapon for Black, although it's contradictory that it's called an attack and it's a defense at the end of the day. But let's see. White accepted the gift. Now Black is essentially losing this pawn on e5. White took the pawn. The modern interpretation of the Marshall, and what has been played for decades, is to play here the move c6. And after that, the main line develops with d4. Bishop d6 will hit the rook, which goes back. Sometimes it drops to e2 as well. But black's attack is very natural and free-flowing. Queen h4 hitting h2, so white blocks with g3. The queen jumps into h3, and the light squared bishop is coming this way to g4. And black tries to take advantage of the light squares and has some easy attacking ideas like f5, f4, maybe g5. The rook can swing over if needed. And this has been debated at the top level for many years, until eventually it was more or less neutralized and considered a drawing weapon. But the original interpretation of the originator himself, Mr. Frank Marshall, was to play knight f6. And just like in the main line, the idea is to put the bishop on d6, to bear down on h2, and put the knight on g4. And later, when you have brought the queen, you can perhaps put the bishop on b7. So all your pieces will have natural attacking squares. Capablanca retreated the rook, anticipating bishop d6, which was played anyway. And now the idea is knight to g4. Capablanca played h3 to prevent knight g4. But the legend goes that Marshall had studied this line, prepared it for a long time, and he even saved it so that he could play it against Capablanca. And he did so in this game. And here he unleashed knight to g4. What a move. Now the first question is obvious. What happens if we take this knight? That's a natural move, but queen h4 is very dangerous here. The problem is that black is threatening to take on g4. And if you play a move such as d4, we can see the danger of allowing bishop takes g4. We can't move the queen now because the bishop is covering e2, so this will be checkmate. So a very dangerous attack, which is hard to counter. And facing these complications, Capablanca went for a more solid move. He played queen to f3. Marshall went queen h4, continuing the attack. And again, you can't take this because of bishop takes g4. But now the question is, well, there's a rook hanging. But that's not a very tasty rook, is it? Because you lose control over f2 and then the rook on e1 is hanging. So this rook is off limits. Capablanca played d4, opening up for his bishop, preparing to develop the knight as well. And white is trying to catch up in development before black finishes his attack. And here Marshall played knight takes f2. A strong move. Very interesting attack by black. So what to do here? Well, Capablanca played rook to e2, but why didn't he take the knight? Well, that's tricky. Queen takes f2. Here the correct move is bishop h2. If, however, black were to play the tempting bishop g3, he will be in for a rude awakening. And white has a very strong move here. Pause the video if you want to find it. The move is, are you ready? One man, one move. Queen takes f7. King goes to the corner, we take here, and if you take here, there's a deadly pin on the rook. So rook e8 comes with checkmate. That's why if white takes the knight here, queen takes f2. The correct move is bishop h to check first. Now if the king goes to the corner, we just take the queen. But if we go here, now we can go to g3. And now the line that worked before doesn't work because rook takes f7 is with, yes, check. Still, this is a playable line for white, but Capablanca went with rook to e2. Yet another attacking move. So the attack is coming from all directions. And perhaps the metaphor is that Assange is the White King here. He is under attack from all angles. But so far he's surviving. This is a sacrifice that Capablanca accepted. He took on g4. Marshall came in with attack. Bishop h2 and king to f1. Bishop g3 now by Marshall. Threatening checkmate on h1. Black is down a piece. After Capablanca took on f2. White is up 2 pieces. Black needs to mate here. So Marshall goes for it. Queen h1 check. King e2. The king is running. The king is surviving. Bishop takes f2. Here Capablanca went with bishop to d2. What happens if he takes the bishop? Then we take the bishop on c1 and we're threatening this. And the king is still under attack. So White doesn't have time for this. So that explains Capablanca's move, bishop d2. Marshall kept his bishop. Queen h3, offering the queen trade, which of course Black doesn't want. He wants to keep up the attack. So first he starts with a check, rook a to e8 check, king d3, and now queen f1. But now the king comes to c2, and we have arrived at the Assange position. Well, actually, bishop f2 first by Marshall, and now we have the position that Assange tweeted. The king, perhaps Assange, has been running, but it's safe, perhaps in the Ecuadorian embassy here, but it has survived all attacks, and White is now simply better and just needs to consolidate. Or does this mean that he has escaped? Who knows? Let's finish the game. Queen f3 by Capablanca. Queen g1. White has the superior material. He has 2 light pieces against the rook. And having safeguarded his king, all he needs to do is activate his pieces and he should be better. Bishop d5. c5 by Marshall, desperately trying to open up the White king. But Capablanca takes and keeps his cover for the king. b4 and now a4, deciding to activate the rook via the a file. Black really doesn't have a choice but to let it in. After a5, still trying to open up a position. Capablanca took on b5 and now he has a dangerous passed pawn. Rook a6 was played, and well, Black still tries to open up, but now the knight comes to safeguard the king and does a surprisingly good job. And well, we covered that in one of my pattern recognition videos called The Knight Guarding the King, so we know all about the power of the knight protecting the king. Bishop b4, b6, putting the passed pawn immediately to good use. Marshall took Capablanca's knight on c3. Almost no hint of activity for the black pieces, no way to check the White king. So the game finished after h6. Capablanca pushed the pawn b7, and after rook e3 finally trying to come into White's position, Capablanca ended the game with bishop takes f7 check. And why does this end the game? Well, for many reasons. Number one, you can't take this because I would simply make a new queen, and that's too much with all the attacking forces I have around the black king. Denying it runs into many problems, especially if you go to h8. Now this pin comes into effect and the rook swings over, finishing the game. And not much is to be had with king h7 when queen f5 is mating in short order. So a nice game by Capablanca, refuting this very dangerous attack which he had to face and see for the first time over the board. The question is, what does this cryptic tweet mean and what was the meaning behind it? Well, only the man himself knows. But I think the Number one theory is that the White King is representing Assange himself. He has been under attack for a long time, but he's still safe. He's in a safe haven. And maybe it means he has already escaped, who knows. But anyway, people have been speculating, and well, what are your speculations? One theory is that this game is actually 100 years old. It was played in 1918, but it was played late in 1918. So perhaps something will happen in October. Who knows? But yeah, what are your speculations? What are your theories? Why do you think he tweeted this famous game? And what does it mean? Your comments and questions are welcomed. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.